Hi everybody, my name's Dave Felsey. I'm a cloud architect at Oracle, and I'm going to give you a very brief introduction to chatbots for those people in the audience or listening online who have never come across it before, who perhaps got some questions about what it is. Chat is the new email. As I'm sure most people have noticed over the last few years, messaging and chat applications have really, come to the fore. Most millennials or people who are slightly older tend to use chat rather than email, and I suppose it's a sign of your age, how you communicate with your friends and family. If you're certainly below 20, it's certainly going to be something like Snapchat or WhatsApp or something like that. And one of the reasons why chat or messaging has become so prevalent is that it's a natural form of communication if you're using it from a mobile application. It works seamlessly from a mobile platform. The other thing is that, messaging and chat has come a long way since SMS messages, and there's a lot of context and a lot more features these days that you can use. So typically with a messaging application, the messaging application will know who your friends are. It will have other context like your location, etc. You'll be able to send other types of media like videos, etc. It's quite different from how chat was, 5 or 10 years ago. So what are chatbots? Obviously everybody knows now that messaging, or if you didn't know already, messaging is probably one of the most popular forms of communication for certainly younger generation. Well, chatbots really are virtual users, or virtual assistants for communicating via messaging or chat. So a chatbot is literally a program which communicates to a user through messaging or a chat interface. It's conversational. You don't really issue commands and it gives you a response. You talk to it as you would a normal person. And typically chatbots target a particular use case, provide a particular service, or focus on answering particular types of questions. So for example, here's a sort of typical sort of conversational commerce type interaction you might have with a chatbot. Lara on your right hand side works in sales and has just changed roles, and she's going to be using a chatbot to actually order some new business cards to reflect the new role she's got. So the type of conversation she might have is fairly free form. It's not totally free form, but these are the type of interactions you'd expect with a chatbot. She's not issuing commands, she's typing in what she wants to do. So her interaction is in the blue on the right hand side. And because she's interacting with a chatbot which has context, it knows who she is, it knows what she wants to do to an extent. It can provide intelligent answers, and it makes the whole interaction a lot more simple, a lot slicker than it would be, for instance, if you're going to an application which you've perhaps never used before, having to navigate various screens, having to go to download it, for instance. So it can ask things like, I noticed that your role has changed in the HCM system. Would you like me to use your new role in your new business cards? It gives her the opportunity to say yes or no. And then it also, asks, would you want me to place the order? Now we've modified the business card for you. Do you want me to place the order and send them to you? She answers affirmatively, and then obviously it gives her the opportunity to say where she wants the business cards to be sent to. The whole process is very quick, very simple, very easy to do. She hasn't had to log on to any specific applications, hasn't had to learn how to use any particular applications, and she's been able to use sort of natural language really to perform the task of ordering some new business cards. This is a typical interaction you'd have with a chatbot that forms a business-specific task. And what you're trying to get away from really with chatbots is the traditional user interface you'd see with applications, where you're asked to issue commands which are very machine-centric. So chatbots move away from that and make it a more natural experience. And with that, they bring some other concerns. There's no such thing as a free lunch. You make it easier to use, but then you introduce other things. When you're dealing with an application, which is screens and menus and things like that, it's very passive. When you introduce a chatbot, you actually feel like you're talking to someone, and you feel like they have a personality. There are other things come into play. For instance, you have to think about the customer sentiment. Certain tasks may not be suitable for a chatbot. If you have a chatbot that, for instance, deals with complaints, you have to start thinking about, how's the customer going to react? How should I respond appropriately? There are all sorts of different things you need to start thinking about. And equally, you might want to give your chatbot a personality. Many people who have chatbots give them names. And in a sense, they're trying to make them appear like an actual person, though the usual practice really with chatbots is to be very upfront with users and tell them that, this is a machine you're talking to, not a person. But inevitably people, they start to think even though they know it's an actual machine they're talking to, they tend to assume that they actually are talking to a person. But you can do clever things. You can, maybe if you've got some context about the person you're communicating with, maybe you change your style of conversation appropriately. Maybe use their demographics to be more relaxed if they're younger, maybe more formal if they're older. Maybe the type of conversation you're having requires a different type of personality. There are all sorts of things like this. But there's some very useful things as well. You have an audit trail of what went on. So you capture all that information. So later on, you can perhaps use that, if need be, to rectify any sort of miscommunications or track things for sort of enhancements. One of the other things that's led to the rise of chatbots and the increased interest in them is the increased interest in artificial intelligence. So as well as providing a simple user interface to have a conversation to achieve some task, the improvements or the greater availability of toolkits and services around artificial intelligence have helped develop very simple messaging applications to make them much more sophisticated. And two areas of artificial intelligence which have played a big role in this are natural language processing and machine learning. And my colleague Ed afterwards will go into these in a bit more detail. But in essence, what those two areas of artificial intelligence allow you to do is to break apart the conversation or the questions that a person is asking to find out what parts of that text are important and to determine what their intent is from that to serve up appropriate answers. So it allows you to have that conversation because you deduce from what they're saying what they actually want you to do or what information they want from you. And of course, chatbots are great. It can actually be quite fun talking to a chatbot rather than just typing in, clicking on menus, etc. And especially when people give chatbots personalities, it's a slightly more interesting experience than just clicking on menus, etc. But there are times when no matter how good the artificial intelligence which sits behind a chatbot is, they're going to sort of run out of road. The questions become more ad hoc or more complicated, or the chatbot starts to ask things which, the application was never designed to deal with. And at that point, you need to really hand off to a real person. And that process of actually interacting with someone via a chatbot and then handing over to a real person, to a real service representative to deal with customer questions needs to be as seamless as possible. You need to pass the context on so that the person doesn't have to go and ask the customer, what they wanted again, so they don't have to go through the whole rigmarole of explaining their problem. And a number of our customers, we've actually integrated chatbots, for instance, with the Oracle Service Cloud to make that experience completely seamless to a user. They know that, for instance, they're being handed on to a real person, but the experience from their perspective is very seamless and simple. Right, that's a very, very quick overview of what chatbots are, how you can use them, and some of the technologies that are involved. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Ed now.